Hello and welcome to walk and talk through the second specimen paper in the Remote Learning Booklet. Hopefully that you've already looked at the last narrated PowerPoint and have understood a little bit more about how the questions work through that. So this is the second set of paper 2 that's in the Remote Learning Pack, and the extract that you're looking at is Love Letters of the Great War, which is by a chap called Bert Bailey. So question 1 So we're being asked again, just a little recap of the question, that we need to comment on how the writer uses language and structure to interest and engage the reader. And here's the first exemplar response that I've prepared for you. In the extract, the author tries to keep the situation as normal as possible by starting with "another night has passed and another morning come." This is implemented to connect with his wife, who is living a normal life at home. The author tries to keep the mood happy, as this letter was for his wife. "Nice day," "fair and fine" are all examples to show that the author is trying to avoid the elephant in the room, and that's being in war. The author contrasts himself within sentences. "We had a nice day, except that underneath everything was mud and slosh." This is to show to his wife that he's all right, so she doesn't worry about him. He ties in, "You must not worry, darling." The soldier uses a list to show what he needs and doesn't need. Toffee, condensed milk. This can assure to the wife that he's fine. The letter shows that they have been communicating for a long time. "I'm still in the trenches." The writer also talks about the future, clothes for winter, showing he cares about his wife. Okay, so my thoughts on this response are that it's okay. It does quote reasonably often, and it does pick up on some kind of aspects of nuance. So, for example, that he's trying to make it sound like things are okay when perhaps maybe they're not. He talks about the elephant in the room that's being at war. It does quote reasonably regularly. I think that we could just about talk about that, say that it hints into structure when they write that the author contrasts himself within sentences. So I think there's just about possibly scraping into level 3. So I think we could possibly call this a 7 out of 15. It might really be closer to a 6. You need really to be absolutely frank and talk about structure. So even just sort of saying that he opens with an affectionate address term, "my darling wife," and that he signs off affectionately when he says goodbye to her, that might actually hit you the structure mark more clearly. So this one would be about 6 or 7 out of 15. Let's look at a better one. Okay, so this one is pretty strong. Let's have a look at why it's so much better. So the writer Bert uses endearing pet names when writing to his wife frequently through the letter. This puts her at ease, as well as signifying the loving and intimate relationship they share. When calling her his darling wife, he is possessive, indicating how much he cares about her. By doing this, the reader, his wife, feels reassured and relaxed. Bert also does this to soften his instructive tone. Throughout the letter, he's using imperatives in his instructions, which may appear as harsh or aggressive without the loving nicknames. Okay, so far this response is kind of using some quite nice subject-specific terminology. So he talks about the pet names, and he talks about using imperatives and instructions. So that's quite promising, and they're using quite short quotations embedded in the answer. Throughout the letter, Bert uses colloquialisms to create a more personal feel. An example of these is the repetitive use of rhetorical questions such as "darling, will you?" and "doesn't it?" These are often used as conversational fillers in everyday conversation, and so consequently make the letter more intimate and engaging for the reader. Bert's wife is given a sense that he's actually there and twaddling with her, making her more comfortable and relaxed. Through his attempts to create a positive tone, the writer tries to assure his wife that everything is okay. He claims that he's had a nice day, despite there being an underlying sense that this is false. We can see this when he describes the mud and slosh, which contrast a typical nice day. As a secondary reader, we can see that he may be doing this so that his wife doesn't worry about him. He may, however, also do this to stay positive personally, knowing he can protect his wife from the horrors in the trenches. Bert kept the reader engaged through his flirtatious language. He humours her when talking about the tablecloth, suggesting that they are still at a very flirty point or honeymoon phase in their relationship. We also see his attempts to flatter her when he switches from first to third person address. And she's the little girl who said his wife would have been happy. Oh, his wife would have been happy when receiving this flirtatious compliment, consequently keeping her engaged in the letter. So this uses quite a lot of embedded quotations. It seems to talk at quite a sort of sophisticated level. It talks about the contrast. I do think that they could possibly have been a bit more explicit when talking about structure, but I think that they hit structure when they talk about repetitive use of rhetorical questions, and also actually at the start when they talk about how endearing pet names are used frequently through the letter. So if we're looking at the marks scheme, which is on the next slide, let's think about where it falls. Okay, so I think this one would probably fall somewhere around the top of level 4 and possibly nudge into level 5, but no, I think it's strong on features. I think that would be a 12 or possibly a 13 out of 15. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much.